Hi, everyone. Can everybody see me and hear me okay right now? All right, there we go. Looks like everything's better now. Hi, everyone. My name is Adrian, and I am broadcasting to you live from beautiful Central Europe, where we're having some fantastic, warm, sunny spring weather. Hi, Harminder. Good to see you in this class as well. Students, we are looking at IELTS listening practice and strategy for the listening section. Materials are coming from aehelp.com and from gieltshelp.com. We'll be using those websites today for the listening. As well, you can download our apps from your app store. Just search for Academic IELTS Help. You can get our books from Amazon. In your Amazon store, search for AE Helps Academic IELTS or GE Helps General IELTS. And if you have questions, comments, concerns, don't be shy. Send me an email to adrian@aehelp.com, ADRIAN, my name, at aehelp.com. Right now, we're doing listening strategy where everybody can chat. Tomorrow, we will have a members chat class. It will be a task 1, graphs, diagrams, followed by a task 2. These are Central European time, so everybody chat classes are 15 to 16 o'clock. It's this time right now. All right, so students, let's get into some listening practice without further ado. We're looking at section 3. When you're practicing at home, especially section 3 and section 4, it's good practice to sometimes look at the questions before you listen, just so you can get a good idea of what you will be hearing. So let's have a look at these questions and let's talk about them a little bit and then we'll listen. Okay, so we'll look at the questions first. This is just for practice before the exam, and then we will do the listening and answer these questions. So question 21, match the professor with their university. Dr. Henry Gergen, Dr. Gloria Mesto, University of Edinburgh, Trinity College, Dublin. Just read with me. So next set of questions, 22 to 24. Which 3 of the following are arguments given against zoos? Write the 3 correct letters A to F next to the question. The animals are treated inhumanely. Animals are persons. The conservation of species. Animals should not be in prison. Animals are human beings and should be treated equally. They are fundamentally wrong. So when we look at these questions, what do you think this listening will be about, students? So hi, Aigul. Hi, Patricio. What do you think it will be about? Hi, Yosef, Samir. What are we going to listen to? So this is a type of practice that you should do at home, especially for the more difficult sections 3 and sections 4. Aigul says it will be about animals. Pachu says it will be something against zoos. Sana says more generally something about zoos. Yeah, and it's important to be accurate with your prediction, students. So practice strategy. Okay, at home, especially section 3 and 4. The reason I say that is those are more difficult. You should look at questions and predict information before you listen. So our example here is section 3, and some of you are saying it will be about zoos and animal rights. So zoos, animal rights. Sure. Now, you should know that in the exam, there are listening sections which are often debates. Does everybody know what a debate is? What is a debate? So this is a tip. Practice listening to debates. Okay, often one of the listening sections usually section 2 or 3 will be some type of debate. Okay, it's very common. A debate is more than just a discussion, Kaldrogo. Farhan says an argument between people. Yes, it's partially correct, Farhan. Yosef Samir says deliberating. Deliberating is a part of debating as well. So what is a debate? It's good to know the actual definition of a debate. It is an intelligent argument between two or more people whereby two sides of the issue, two or more, often in the IELTS it's just two or more sides of the issue are presented and supported with examples and explanations. Okay, notice this common pattern, students, in the IELTS exam with task 2 writing as well, that when they ask you about advantages, disadvantages, they're basically asking you to do a self-debate for many of these questions. Okay. Lady Salim says it's two groups talking for and against an idea. Yeah, absolutely. And the missing part that's important to consider is with explanations and examples. Okay, so debates will include rational, logical, visible, observable explanations and examples. Absolutely. Okay, so let's keep looking at these questions a little bit. When you're observing the possible choices and you're practicing for the listening section at home, you should always learn new vocabulary. So, for example, option A, inhumanely. What does that mean? Conservation. What does that mean? Okay. So when you're practicing at home, you should always take a couple minutes to define words that are new or unfamiliar and write an example sentence with them. Amrit, I believe you're answering that question rudely. Roshni Kunte, mercilessly, okay, the ly, adjective form, okay, or adverb form, sorry, mercilessly. Not in a humane way, or not the way to treat a human. Yeah, in here is the prefix meaning not, and humane meaning like a human. So, yes, I still don't see the best synonym there yet. Treated cruelly, okay? To be cruel, to be mean, to treat cruelly is to treat inhumanely, okay? Yosef, right, antonym negative, not gently, not kindly, okay? So cruel, to be cruel is the opposite of to be kind, and to treat animals cruelly is to treat them inhumanely. What does conservation mean? Conserve, conservation is the noun. So conservation, yeah, Silin Wang, brutal is also very good as well. Brutally is another, I think that's how you spell it, brutally, okay? So brutally, absolutely. Pachu, yes, conservation is preservation, protection. Yes. Another way is to save, to preserve, to keep. Right. Those are all good definition of conservation. Another way that you can use this to conserve is conserving water in the desert. If you are lost in the desert and you have some water, it's important to conserve it. It means to save it. Okay? Conservation efforts, Mariko, does mean to protect nature. Just watch your spelling, Mariko. Okay, good. So let's keep going here. So again, define unfamiliar words. Don't just, a lot of students, what they do is they just listen to a lot of different IELTS listening tests in hopes that they will magically improve their score, but that's not the way the brain works. You have to implement effective learning strategies, check the vocabulary, go over the sentences, make corrections, give definitions to unfamiliar words. Please, students, don't just do one test after the next without any kind of feedback. It is not effective learning, okay? You have to have feedback. All right, so we're talking about zoos. We're talking about conservation of animals. We're talking about treating animals fairly. It's a debate. Let's read the questions further. In order to improve the conditions for zoo animals, zoos must be held to of animal treatment. While zoos do conserve animal life, Dr. Gergen argues that this function could also be performed by animal something. Enjoyment and something are two key positive attributes of zoos. Good. 28 to 30, multiple choice. Choose the correct letters A, B, or C. According to Dr. Gergen, does the value of inspiring young people outweigh the negative aspects of zoos? Yes, no, he is not sure. What is the interesting question? Whether zoos are ethical, whether the inspiration value of zoos outweighs their negative aspects, whether enjoyment and inspiration negate the importance of zoos. Okay, just a really important couple questions here. Interesting question. Why do you see quotation marks here? So for this, why would you see this quotation mark? What is this telling you when you review your questions? And you will have time in the listening for some review, and you see this quotation, interesting question quotation. What will you know? What should you know? Yes, Aigul, it is important, so it's not showing sarcasm. That will not be the case in the IELTS exam. So when we do this in speech or in some text, sometimes it means sarcasm, but not in this case. Farhan says it will be emphasized in speaking somewhat. You should know, students, that when you have quotation marks, it means that this is a direct quote. Does everybody know what a direct quote is? You should know that. It's very important. For high band scores like 7, 8, 9, you should know the difference between a direct and an indirect quote. The other way that you hear it is direct speech or indirect speech. Joseph says, has been taken from the audio recording. Yes, it means it's exactly the same. Okay, this is a direct quote. So it is said exactly the same in the speaking, in the audio. Okay? So if this is new for you, then make sure to review and learn it at home, okay? So know the difference. Okay, so know the difference. Understand, be able to use both direct and indirect quotes. You'll hear it as indirect speech in English. There are certain grammar rules that are important for this, okay? So make sure to review and learn this, okay? That's a whole nother class or even several classes, so I'm not going to go off on that tangent. We are focusing on the listening section. All right, and then somebody asked a good question. There's another interesting word here. So you're going to listen, sorry, before I run along here, you're going to listen exactly for this phrase, interesting question. So when you hear it, pay attention, okay? So you will hear, oh, that is an interesting question, or, well, an interesting question is, so you should hear exactly these words. Somebody asked, what is the word negate? Anybody know the definition of negate? Notice the word gate as the root. So you have a gate, right? And negate, as you can imagine, is a negative, right? So another way to read this is whether enjoyment and inspiration cancels, okay, the importance of zoos. Okay, denies or ignores. That's right. Those are some nice synonyms. Okay, so you should realize that that doesn't make much sense. So probably not the right answer. Okay, last one before we listen here. What do the guests agree on? Zoo conditions need to be improved. Zoos are unethical. The inspiration value of zoos is unethical. All right. Students, let's listen. So we reviewed it in detail. At home, when you practice for IELTS, you probably want to spend even more time reviewing and making sure you understand each statement. For now, that's enough. I'm going to jump back to our website. So this is our academic IELTS website. If you click that big red button, you can join our premium package, which allows you access to all of our beautiful, wonderful, amazing materials. You get a tour in the beginning, so you know what you're doing. And then you have interactive IELTS tests that you can do on your phone. You have a full interactive course. You have PDF exam books and student workbooks. You have 100 hours of lesson videos, pre-recorded videos, and then, this is where we're going, you have these audio CDs. Now, I'm going to start playing the audio here in just a moment. I am using my microphone and a Bose speaker for the audio. Full volume on my side, and so if it's a little bit quiet for you, try to use a headset or turn up the volume on your side. Also, students, please don't write your answers into the chat. Give everybody a fair chance to answer on their own, okay? So here we go with our exam number 4, listening section 3. So that will be here. So 3, 2, 1, pencils, papers, or a fresh document ready. Here we go.
Now turn to section 3. Take some time to look at questions 21 to 26. Listening section 3. You will hear a panel discussion on the ethics of zoos. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 26.
Welcome everyone to this very special evening. Tonight's speakers are 2 distinguished scholars. Dr. Henry Gergen from the University of Edinburgh is a philosopher and animal rights advocate. Dr. Gloria Mesto from Trinity College Dublin is an animal conservationist. Welcome to you both. The topic of tonight's discussion is the ethics of zoos. Here is the fundamental question. Is it right to house animals in zoos, or should they live freely in nature instead?
As an animal rights advocate and theorist, I have clear views on this question. To me, it is fundamentally wrong to lock up animals for human enjoyment. I believe that in many important respects, animals are persons and should be afforded many of the rights that human beings have. Chief among these is the right to liberty and the freedom to achieve one's desired ends in life. Clearly, these rights are abrogated by imprisonment within the zoo. Moreover, in many cases, animals in zoos are treated inhumanely and are subject to confinement in extremely small spaces. While regulation of zoos may help mitigate some of these problems, I maintain that zoos are fundamentally unethical.
I certainly understand Dr. Gergen's position, and I do agree on some of his points, most notably that zoos must be held to higher standards of animal treatment than they are currently. But my colleague fails to consider an important point in favor of zoos. The conservation of species is an incredibly important endeavor, and zoos are on the front line in the battle to save hundreds of species of animals around the world. Zoos often employ some of the leading experts in the field who are best equipped to carry out this important task. It is for this reason that I believe zoos are justified. Though they may not be perfect, I believe zoos and the experts they employ play a critical role in the conservation of species and therefore are ethically permissible.
Dr. Gergen, do you have a rebuttal to that point?
Yes, certainly. While I appreciated Dr. Mester's position as a conservationist, and I do appreciate the work she and others like her do for animal welfare around the world, I must disagree with her. While zoos certainly do play a role in animal conservation, it is not because they are zoos that they play this role.
Dr. Gergen, can you clarify that point for the audience?
Of course. What I mean is this. It is not inherent in the idea of a zoo that they conserve animals. The notions are separable. You can have an animal conservation effort that is not a zoo, just as you can have a zoo that has nothing to do with conservation. So while it is true that some zoos act as animal preserves, this does not justify the existence of zoos, since we could easily separate out these animal preserves from zoos themselves.
Fair point, but such animal preserves would still have the associated problems of poor treatment and unsuitable living conditions.
Yes, but at least it would be in an effort towards a positive end. The animals would not be captive forever, and they would not be captive merely for a human audience.
You now have some time to look at questions 27 to 30. Now listen to the rest of the interview and answer questions 27 to 30.
What about the enjoyment and education that zoos provide, especially to young people? Perhaps individuals like yourselves were inspired to become animal advocates by attending a zoo when you were a child.
That is a really interesting point. I was indeed inspired by going to a zoo when I was a child. What do you think, Dr. Gergen?
It is an interesting thought. What if the positive outcomes caused by inspiring people like us to do good in the future outweigh the harms done to zoo animals? I'm not sure. I would have to think about it more, but it's certainly an interesting question.
Well, thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. In closing, I'm not sure how much progress we've made, but is it safe to say that we can all agree that zoos, at the very least, must do their best to improve the treatment of animals and the conditions in which the animals live?
I would certainly agree with that, as I'm sure my friends would also agree.
That is the end of section 3. You will now have half a minute to check your answers.
All right, students, so that is a section 3. I'm just going to pause the audio here. Give me a moment. And some of you might have found that somewhat difficult, not just because of the topic, but also because of the speakers. So you probably realize that you have three very different speakers here. You have two men, one woman, and all three of them have a bit of a different accent. Can anybody guess what the three accents are that you're listening to in this section 3? So, can anybody guess which three accents you heard in the English language? Just for fun. And then we will go through the answers together. Onisim Lonut, very close. So Onisim Lonut says England, USA, and Australia. You got 1 out of 3, but you're close. English was 1. There was 1 English. Kyber says New Zealand. That's right. There was a New Zealand. One of the men has a Kiwi accent. So 1 was from England, 1 was from New Zealand, and yes, Yusra, the woman is Canadian. So you hear a British, a Canadian, and a New Zealand accent. So you hear all three. Most of the speakers in the audio in the IELTS exam are going to be British, but you can get Canadian, Australian, or New Zealand accents as well. So pay attention to that. All right? Okay, so let's go through the answers. Match the professor with the university. It's a simple matching question here. Number 1, Dr. Henry Gergen. Where is Dr. Henry Gergen from? University of Edinburgh or Trinity College Dublin? Number 1 is A. Amin Isayev says the first answers are A and B. Alanthew says 1 is A. And 2, Dr. Gloria Mesto must be from Trinity College. Now, a good question some viewers might be thinking here is, how do I put that into my answer sheet? Which is a good question. Okay, so 1 is A and 2 is B. Remember, this is just question 21. So you'll see this as box 21 in your answer sheet. Okay, so the best way to show this is 1A to B. Okay, or you could just have A, comma, B. But you have to have the right order here. All right, it's very important so you don't lose marks. If you just throw B and A in there like that, you'll get that wrong. Okay, it has to be at least in the correct order in the blank that's given. All right, so pay attention to this one. It's kind of a weird one. It does appear on the exam. You would likely only see it once in the whole listening test. Okay, Zokir, after listening comes reading. So first you listen for roughly 50 minutes, and then you do reading for an hour. All right, now the next set of questions, it's actually 22 to 24. So here on your answer sheet, you have 22, 23, and then 24. The order doesn't matter, so it doesn't matter which order your answers come in. Each one is worth a point, 1 point for each. You just have to get the 3 correct. All right? So pay careful attention to the question. What are arguments given against zoos? Okay, so what are the arguments given against zoos? Meaning, why should we not have animals in zoos? Is another way to think about this. So why not keep animals in zoos? Okay. So the animals are treated inhumanely. That was not really given. So I don't think that one's correct. But yeah, maybe it was. Maybe it was said. Okay, so A, sure. All right, a lot of you are saying A. We'll check the answer sheet afterwards. So animals are treated inhumanely. Animals are persons, the conservation of species. Animals should be in prison. animals or human beings should be treated equally. They are fundamentally wrong. I'm going to take the most common answer. A is very common. E looks like is common among many students. So E. Animals should not be in prison is strange. Some of you are giving that, but they're not actually in prison. I'm surprised that a lot of you are not giving... Oh, yeah, there we go. So a lot of students are giving F. This one was repeated twice or 3 times by the speaker. So be very careful when you hear information that you hear 3 times. So A... B, and F. Let's stay with those ones. A lot of you said E, animals are human beings and should be treated equally. Doesn't really make sense. You can't really treat an animal exactly the same as a human, so that's kind of strange. So let's stay with A, B, and F. Okay. All right, we'll check the answer key when we're done. Don't worry. We'll take a look. We have one more section after. All right, so I'm going to stick with A, B, and F on that one. And then comes these short fill-in-the-blanks. Okay, so in order to improve the condition for zoo animals, zoos must be held to, pay attention to this, 2 words and or a number. Anybody catch what comes into space 25? All right, Amin and Hassan are saying higher standards. Hassan, just be careful to spell correctly. Amin, you have it correct. Hassan, you have a typo at the end of standards. It's with a D. If you write with capital letters, students, be very careful with your spelling. Double check it, okay, especially when you're transferring your answers. So you can write all big letters, so higher standards, okay? Higher standards. Has to be plural. You must have that S because it's S, zoos. Okay, zoos must be held to higher standards of animal treatment. Okay, it's plural, plural. Make sure you have that. 26. While zoos do conserve animal life, Dr. Gergen argues that this function could also be performed by animal something. Animal preserves, that's right. Okay, preserves. Animal preserves are basically large areas of forests or fields or lakes even, where animals live without being disrupted by tourists and visitors, okay? The big difference between zoos and animal preserves is in zoos, they allow tourists, they allow visitors who pay money for the entrance fee. Animal preserves usually do not, okay? They're protected land areas where animals live in peace. So preserves. 27, this came after the break, came very quickly. Enjoyment and, you can probably guess, even if you didn't catch this. Enjoyment and something are 2 key positive attributes of zoos. Education, that's right. For everybody who's answering education, good. Makes sense. Even if you think about it, even if you miss this and you think about a zoo, there are all those signs that talk about the animal, where it lives, what it eats, how many animals of that type exist. So people learn in zoos, right? Okay, so education. All right. Those seem to be correct. Let's keep going. Yes, small e, Roshni. Roshni Kunte is asking for that. Is a small e okay? Yes, it is, because the word is not a proper noun, and it is in the middle of the sentence. So it's just a common noun. You can have a small e. Yeah. In fact, it's strange if it's a big E. The reason why enjoyment, Roshni, has a capital E is because it's at the beginning of the sentence. Okay, so small e is absolutely okay. All right, multiple choice. Choose the correct letters A, B, or C. According to Dr. Gergen, does the value of inspiring young people outweigh the negative aspects of zoos? Yes, no, or he is not sure. Yeah, it's C. Very good. Okay, a lot of you said C. Yeah, he says, I'm not sure. I'd have to think about that. Okay, so he does say it twice. I'm not sure. There's one way. It's exactly the same way as what you see. And the second way is, I'd have to think about that. If somebody says, I'd have to think about that, it means that they're not sure. Okay, so the information is given twice. Okay, what is that interesting question? So these answers came very quickly. That's why you have to prepare. Students, when you see multiple choice in the listening section, especially in the listening section of the IELTS exam, when you see multiple choice, you have to review those questions. Focus more, okay? You only have about 30 seconds to look at the questions. If you see multiple choice questions, focus especially on those ones. It's very important. Okay, so that's a very important tip that I gave you right there. Okay, you can save yourself a couple of band scores. In fact, I myself will take a minute to give you that really important tip. Okay, so when you see multiple choice questions in the listening section, make sure to allocate time to review these carefully. Allocate means to give time, okay? In this case, to address or give time. All right, so the interesting question, I think many of you said B for number 29, whether zoos are ethical, whether the inspiration value of zoos outweighs their negative aspects. That looks good. Whether enjoyment and inspiration negate the importance of zoos, that's kind of strange. Sometimes students follow this kind of weird strategy where they're like, oh, I see a difficult word, negate, so I'm sure that this is the right answer because it has this tricky word in there. That is not a reliable strategy, okay? It might work sometimes, but it's 50-50 at best. So that is not an effective strategy. Trying to pick the answer that has high-level vocabulary just because it has high-level vocabulary is not a good idea, okay? B is the correct answer here. So this is a perfect example of don't pick just because there's a word that you think is high level, okay? So B, I'm going to switch up my marker here. So B is the right choice, I believe. What do the guests agree on? Zoo conditions need to be improved. Zoos are unethical. The inspiration value of zoos is unethical. Last one, number 30. Is it A, B, or C? What do they agree on? Let's see what you're saying. Some of you are saying, most of you are saying A, which I'm happy to see. A. And I noticed that a lot of you are using small letters to answer. For multiple choice and such, use the capital letters. It's better than the small letter. Okay, so it's better to use this. You'll get this correct, but you have to make sure that it's very clear. I definitely recommend for these kinds of answers where you're putting down A, B, or C, use capital letters, okay? Use uppercase letters, not lowercase letters, uppercase letters, okay? It's just clearer for the examiners. It makes more sense. All right. So now, students, we will go on to section 4. Have your pencil, your paper ready. We're going to do section 4 together. Section 4, it's seamless. It means that section 4 is different from section 1, 2, and 3, which means that you don't get a chance halfway through to do a second review. So your pacing, you need to be really, really careful. Okay? You need to make sure that you keep up with the audio. Again, students, please do not write your responses into the chat. Please wait till the end. Give everybody a fair chance. All right? Shahayatri, we're not on that topic. Please stop crowding the chat. Otherwise, I'll have to remove you from the chat. Thank you. If you have a question, you can always send it to me by email. Thanks. So get ready to listen and answer. Again, please don't write the answers into the chat. Okay? All right. Here we go.
Take some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Listening, Section 4. You will hear a professor discussing the migration of loggerhead turtles. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
It's late April on the South Atlantic coast of North America, and one of the most remarkable journeys in all of nature is about to begin. The loggerhead turtle, whose natural habitat is the open ocean, has to seek dry land to lay its eggs. The sandy beaches of Florida provide a perfect nesting spot, with soft sand that can be dug up by the persistent flippers of the female loggerhead. Over the course of the next 3 months, hundreds of thousands of eggs will be laid on such beaches. Many of these eggs will become the victim of predators, but many will survive to hatching, which occurs 2 months after being laid. Hatching marks the beginning of an incredible journey for the loggerhead turtle. Almost immediately upon hatching, the young turtles, known as hatchlings at this point, head for the open ocean. The ocean, while full of its own dangers and predators, provides a relative safe haven for the hatchlings away from many of the predators that live near the shoreline. These young turtles embark upon a journey that will take them upwards of 13,000 kilometers around the North Atlantic. Many animals make large and incredible journeys, but what makes the loggerhead turtle's migration so notable is the speed at which the animal moves. While many bird species make similar journeys, they move at velocities much faster than the loggerhead turtle. This slow-moving beast travels at the remarkably sluggish pace of only 3/4 of a kilometre per hour. This means it will take the turtle a minimum of 17,000 hours to complete its migratory journey, not even taking into account stops for feeding and sleep. To put that number in perspective, 17,000 hours is approximately 2 years of non-stop swimming. That the loggerhead turtle makes this journey alone makes it all the more impressive. From birth to adolescence to adulthood, the loggerhead turtle is a solitary traveller. But how does it know where to go? Doesn't it need a parent to help it know the route? This is where the loggerhead becomes even more fascinating. Recent research tells us the loggerhead uses the magnetic field of the Earth to determine its migration route. Because the Earth's magnetic field differs in each location around the world, the loggerhead turtle can use it as a kind of innate roadmap, illuminating the way to where they need to be. One example of this is the behaviour they exhibit when they encounter the particular magnetic field off the coast of Portugal. Instead of continuing north towards the cold waters of northern Europe, they sense the magnetic field and turn around, instead heading for the warmer waters of northwestern Africa. And it is not just that the loggerhead turtle has a sort of innate compass. They are able to determine, with surprising precision, their latitude and longitude. They know exactly when to zig and zag to optimize their migratory pattern. Even with their incredible ability to know where they are and where they need to be, the survival rate of migratory loggerhead turtles is incredibly low. In fact, only about 1 in 4,000 hatchlings makes it back to the beach in eastern Florida to mate and lay its eggs. However, that any make it at all is an incredible achievement and one of the great natural wonders of navigation.
That is the end of section 4. You will now have half a minute to check your answers.
Okay, students. So that is listening section 4. As you saw and heard, it's quite quick. The answers come fast. You have to keep pace. You have to know where you are. It's a little bit easier with me helping because I'm moving the page to the proper location. So here we go. Let's answer these together. All right. Here we go. So again, it's no more than 2 words. Always pay attention to the instructions. The loggerhead turtle has to seek dry land to lay its eggs. This is a reference. So listening to dry land to lay its eggs helps you identify where you are in the audio. And then it continues. The sandy beaches of something provide the perfect location for nesting. The right answer is Florida. Florida is a proper noun, so you have to have a capital F. If you write that with a small f, like Sanjeev or Sana or Lady Salim, you will get it wrong. Okay? So careful. Sometimes part 4 answers might look easy, but there's just slight aspects that make it more difficult. It's a capital F. Okay? Florida. You can write all capital, just make sure that the spelling is correct. Okay? So Florida it is. All right. So then we keep going. We're patient. We're listening. After hatching, the loggerhead turtle immediately heads for the ocean. The ocean is safer than the shore because it has fewer what? What does it have less of? What's the exact word that they use there? And good for Farhan and Patricia and Pachu for getting that. It's predators. Plural because of fewer, very important. So fewer predators, very important. The turtles embark on a journey. Always pay attention to plurals and singulars on subject nouns, object nouns. So the turtles embark on a journey that will take them something kilometers. So this is obviously a number. And the number is 13,000. And Amrit Bogan has even used the correct comma. So it's 13,000. You don't have to have the comma, but it's nice. Okay, you can just do it like this. All right, that's okay also. Just make sure you remember it's 13,000. Okay, while long migratory journeys are fairly commonplace in nature, what makes the loggerhead's journey especially notable is the extremely what? Hassan says sluggish. Aigul agrees. If you didn't catch sluggish, sluggish. Anybody know what a slug is? Bonus question, what is a slug in English? And we use that as a verb, sluggish. You could have also just written slow. Okay, so extremely slow or extremely sluggish. They say both. Anybody know what a slug is? It's a noun. It's not a food. I hope not. All right. Although some animals eat it, not humans. It's a type of animal. Yeah, a slug is a type of animal. A slug is a snail without a house. So a slug looks like this. Okay? A snail has a house. A slug has no home. It's a naked snail. A naked snail is a slug. They're much bigger often. Okay? So snail has a home, slug doesn't. Okay. Good. So let's keep going. Sluggish or slow? Just do a quick erase here. Reset that. Here we go. with question 35. The entire journey is equal to approximately something of continuous swimming with no breaks. So what comes into blank number 35? They say it's a lot of hours. And then, yeah, 17,000 hours or something like that. 70,000 hours. But what is that? Approximately 2 years. Very good. Nice for those of you who are answering as 2 years. Okay. So careful. This word was said. You should have caught the word approximately. It's a nice, long, emphasized word. Approximately. It's approximately. It's 5 syllables. 5 syllables, I believe. Approximately. Yeah, it's a 5-syllable word. So you got to catch words that are emphasized, that are long, 5-syllable words. 2 years. Okay. So 2 years. If you put approximately 17,000 hours, they probably will not give that to you in this case. All right. Yes, Shilpa, Maine. I think you'll get 17,000 hours wrong. Okay, let's keep going. So again, continuing here with this summary. As incredible as the loggerhead turtle's journey is, what makes it even more impressive is that the loggerhead is a something. What is it? It's a something traveler. It's a solitary traveler. That's right, Patricio, solitary. It means it travels alone. So maybe many of you have seen the Disney movie Finding Nemo with that little orange clownfish, and he meets that group of loggerhead turtles where they're all hanging out, dad and son, and they're having a great time in the Australian warm current, and they're, hey, dude, catching some surf, and all the loggerheads are just having a party. Yeah, that's a Disney movie. They're actually alone. They're alone. They're traveling by themselves. Sometimes they get into smaller groups, but definitely not into a big party like in the Disney film. All right. Remember, Disney is not reality in most cases. Okay? Don't learn from Disney. All right. So here we go with the rest of it. Scientific research has, in recent years, told us it is through a connection with the Earth's what? What is it? Yeah, very good. Okay, Hassan, Bezod, Shilpa, Pelin, Kosane, and our 2 members, Harminder and Aigul, giving us all the correct answers. Magnetic field. Yeah, magnetic field. Bonus question, students. Where do you find the magnetic North Pole? Which country? Which country has the magnetic North Pole? So if you go there with a compass, with a magnetic compass, the compass will just spin around and around and around. Which country? Give you a bonus point if you tell me that. It's not Greenland. It's not Australia. Ooh. Anatoly, it's a magnetic North Pole. Manzir Khalid Khan, very good. It is Canada. Canada has the magnetic North Pole up in Nunavut. That's right, my home country. Somehow we're proud of that, like we made it or something, but obviously that's not the case. It's always been there. So yes, Canada has the magnetic North Pole. All right. Let's keep going. For example, the turtles are able to sense something off the coast of, talking about countries, here comes one now, that makes them change their direction and head for Northwest Africa. Portugal, that's right, Portugal it is. Again, just like Florida, it's a proper noun. Be very careful. You have to have a very clear capital P. Be very, very clear with that. That's a big P, okay? Which means this part of it has to be above the line. You should not have it below the line. If it's confusing for the examiner, they'll mark it wrong. So make sure that it's a clear capital P, Okay, very important. Portugal. All right, possessing more than a simple compass, the loggerhead can innately sense its what? It's something and longitude. If you know the words here, you can just guess it. Okay, latitude, longitude. That's right, latitude. The Earth has these lines, these imaginary lines that humans have put on it. Longitude, latitude. Lateral means from side to side. So this is your latitude, and this is your longitude, is the long lines going up and down. Because they're longer, the Earth is kind of squished like an egg, right? So, all right, choose the correct letter, A, B, or C. You had to do a little bit of math here. Approximately what percentage of hatchlings make it back to reproduce for breeding grounds in Florida? So approximately how many? A, B, or C? 0.025%, 2.5%, or, all right, well, hopefully more of you will answer A in the future. The audio says 1 in 4,000. Poor little guys. That is definitely not a favorable odds of making it back. It's like winning the lottery. 1 in 4,000. 1 in 4,000 is 0.025%. That's right, Amrit. Oh boy, poor little loggerhead turtles. Only 1 in 4,000 make it back. So sad. Yes. Aigul, even though you're not mathematicians, IELTS expects you to do simple math on some of these questions. So don't be surprised by it. Okay. If you don't catch that, students, then write it down. Okay, so write down 1 in 4,000. And then when you have 10 minutes to transfer your answer sheets, figure that out. So 1 in 100 would be 1%, right? So if you realize that 1 from 100 is 1%, then 1 in 4,000 has to be something very small, like 0.025%. So you can do the math later when you're transferring your answers to the answer sheet, okay? But do write down what you hear, 1 in 4,000, okay? Especially when it's the very last question in the listening, okay? Don't confuse yourself. All right, students, so that's section 4. Now, what did you get for section 3 and section 4, students? How did you do? Remember that on our page, we have a score calculator in the bottom. It's free to use, of course. So you can click on that score calculator there on the bottom, and then you can actually type in. Now, it's quite bright because the website has a white background there, but you can figure out what you got. So like Amin, you're probably adding up your scores, Isaev from before. So you can check that score on the website. I'll darken up the camera here. Just give me a moment. So you can check the score by accessing that score calculator. And then if you type in 35 there, it will tell you that 35 is a band score of 8. So check out the website, check out the score calculator. Join the free course. If you like it, join the premium course. We're sure you will because most students do. And then you can learn the right strategies to get a really good score for the next time you sit the IELTS exam. Spend a couple dollars to save 300. That makes logical sense, right? Get the right learning materials. Okay. So that's it for me for today, students. Tomorrow I will be back. Members chat class will be first for task 1. Then it will be a task 2 writing class for everybody else coming up after that. Of course, everybody's welcome to watch those members chat classes also. Students, have a fantastic rest of your Friday. If it's late in your country, you're getting ready for bed, then hey, have a good sleep and have a fantastic Saturday. Much love to all of you. Bye for now.